Welcome to the Close the Chapter podcast. I am Kristen Boyce, a licensed marriage and family therapist with a private practice, Pathways to Healing Counseling. Through conversations, education, strategies, and shared stories, we will be closing the chapter on all the thoughts, feelings, people, and circumstances that don't serve you anymore and open the door to possibilities and the real you. You won't want to miss an episode, so be sure to subscribe. Welcome to this week's Close the Chapter podcast. I am so grateful you are here joining me for this episode. We are going to be talking about attachment. And you know how much I love attachment, especially if you're in a couplehood or you have children or you're in a family system or you're just a human being alive. It's so important you understand your attachment system. It is critical to be able to have healthy connections, do vulnerability, and be comfortable and have the capacity for uncertainty and to have the capacity for all different types of emotions. If we don't heal attachment wounds, you will feel overwhelmed. You'll want to shut down, withdraw, or hyperfixate and move towards and want to fix, rescue, and save. And you have that desire for that connection, but it can become an intensity. And we really talk about all those things. We talk about attunement and how to be fully present with yourself and other people and your children, family systems, and doing this work and changing generations. Literally, it's the most important work you'll do. It is worth every penny that you will make to do therapy. And if you can't afford it, there are universities that have grad programs that do graduate counseling programs that do free to no cost therapy. If you do nothing else this year, invest in your own work. You can start off by binge listening to this podcast. There is over 350 episodes. I mean, we cover the gamut, and I can be your cheerleader to support you in this process because it's not easy. And sometimes you want to quit, or sometimes it gets too much. Take breaks. It's okay. I just implore you to invest in what matters, and that's you. And that's healthy relationships, feeling good about yourself. Are you going to always feel good about yourself? No, because that's not reality. I promise you, if you invest in this work, it will change your life and it will change everyone in your life's lives and then generations to come. So don't put it off. I know it's overwhelming. It's anxiety producing, and it's the biggest investment you'll make that has the biggest payoff. So we always look at the stock market and investing and mutual funds and whatever else. That's great. This will matter more because when people are on their deathbed or they're getting close to that, they wish they would have spent more time with the people they love. They wish they would have apologized more, owned their stuff, been more present, put their phones down, didn't work as much, even though we have to make an income. I get that. What impact do you want to leave? Now is the time to work through where you feel stuck. Maybe you get intense. Maybe you have overreaction. Maybe you shut down and withdraw. Maybe you numb out with shopping, food, pornography, alcohol, substances. This is your chance to say, it's going to stop with me. It's going to stop right here. And today's guest wrote a book called Attuned and Attached. And that's what drew me to wanting to interview her because I love the title of her book. It's coming out in May, and we're going to link it to the show notes. Yolanda is a Mexican-American immigrant and a licensed professional counselor and somatic therapist, which means body work. We do a lot of the body, mind, spirit. She works in private practice and provides trauma services for underserved communities and community counseling. Yolanda is also trained in EMDR. We talk about EMDR. If you've listened to the podcast, you know I'm EMDR trained, Pathways to Healing Counseling, which is the private practice I own. We have 15 clinicians and we're all EMDR trained because I believe in it that much. Again, I think it can be life-changing because you work with the mind, body, spirit. She's also somatic experiencing and brain spotting trained in dialectical behavioral therapy. She's got all the modalities. And we talk about attachment. What is it? What types are they? What are you drawn to? What are your patterns? We talk about attunement. How does attunement and attachment connect? How do we heal our parts of ourselves that protect us and that served us well at one point and really build a capacity for all emotions and for uncertainty? So if this speaks to you, pass it along, talk to your partner, maybe pass it along to friends. Let's start conversations that are deeper and be able to tolerate that. Let's have more vulnerable, authentic conversations. It will change the world if we can do that. That will allow us to have more attunement and empathy, not only with ourselves, but with others. So thank you for listening, and I hope this is impactful. And if so, pay it forward. Okay, welcome to this week's Close the Chapter podcast. I am so excited to be talking to you about one of my favorite topics, which is attunement and attachment. And we're going to talk about it all in the same episode. So, my guest today, Yolanda, has a new book called Attuned and Attached. Love the title. Yolanda, welcome to the Close the Chapter podcast.
Thank you so much for having me here. Really, really excited to be having this conversation.
I'm so excited for you. Tell me about yourself and the journey of kind of putting this book together.
It's both a professional and a personal journey. I started as a licensed professional counselor. When I was doing my hours working with people, I started to notice that there were kind of these gaps in treatment because I saw that some people were not really getting better. So I went and got trained. And I've done a lot of training in attachment work and trauma work. So I'm a licensed therapist in Arizona, and I'm a trauma therapist as well. I do somatic experiencing, EMDR. I saw that you were trained in EMDR. Yeah, so I work with people from a holistic perspective, and I thought I would put that in a book.
I love this. Okay, let's dive in. What does attachment and attunement mean? So if someone's like, attachment's all over the TikTok and the Instagram reels, but let's give a digestive version for our audience.
Attachment is about the way that you feel in your relationships. I think oftentimes we don't realize how misattuned we are from the people that we're talking to or that we're working with or that we're in relationship with. And so attunement is just being able to be present to someone in the moment and fully connect to that person. And attachment is the result of having all of these micro moments of attunement. And it's not only with other people, it's with yourself. A lot of the times we miss moments of connection with ourselves. So that's what this book is about helping you connect to yourself so that you're more aware about how you move in relationships and how to improve your connection to other people.
Let's go through the different types of attachment. So for those listening, they can start kind of self-reflecting on where they might land.
Secure attachment is the goal. I think when we talk about attachment, people want to have a secure attachment. And we talk about earned secure attachment, which is if you didn't grow up, getting a safe connection to your caregivers or people in your environment, you can always develop it. The brain is neuroplastic. It doesn't mean that our childhood experiences dictate how we will be the rest of our life. So in secure attachment, we teach ourselves how to feel safe in relationship. Secure attachment is about knowing that you're an individual in a relationship. And secure attachment is about being able to feel safe in your relationships, being able to connect with another individual and not merge with the other individual. So there's this sense of separateness from you and the other person, and you're able to show up authentically without changing yourself to mold yourself into the other person. Other attachment strategies reflect childhood patterns, the way that we have to adapt to survive those relationships in early childhood. And so when we talk about avoidant attachment, for example, we're talking about a child who had to survive by disconnecting from their relationships because their relationships did not feel safe. So in adulthood, avoidant attachment shows up as people disconnecting when relationships don't feel safe, or in general, being really cautious about connecting and not really feeling present to their relationships. We also call these attachment strategies because no one has 100% secure attachment, avoidant attachment, disorganized attachment. We all have a sense of these different strategies. Anxious ambivalent is a person who's often seeking connection and wants connection, but the pattern is seeking connection, not actually having connection. So with those strategies, people often find themselves in relationships recreating childhood patterns of asking others to love them, putting themselves in situations where they're pursuing love, but not getting it. And the tricky part about that, too, is that when it shows up, people don't know how to receive it.
Mm-hmm.
They know how to ask for it. They know what it feels to not have it, but they don't know what it feels to receive it. And then disorganized, which is recognized as the most complex form of attachment, is where people might go into extremes, right? So They go into avoiding connection or running away from connection when it feels hurtful and seeking it. So, this pattern of desiring connection, pursuing connection, but not having a healthy balance of receiving it. So, it's more of like that, those two ends.
And then how does attachment impact attunement?
Attachment is the result of our attunement. So when we're not able to attune to the person that we're with, to our environment, to ourselves, then we struggle creating safe and healthy attachments to other people. See, attachment is the bond that we share with another person or another thing like our pets or nature, right?
Yeah, I think this is really important for folks to self reflect because in order to have healthy relationships, we need to have attunement. Like, this is the key. But oftentimes we didn't get that in childhood. Like, most people, not everybody, but a high percentage of people did not get that attunement. So then they don't know how to give it to themselves or other people. Where does someone begin to heal that?
I think most of us had to misattune or disconnect as a way of survival. Something that I often tell clients is what would have happened if you had been connected to your experiences? That would have been way worse for you. And there's actually a subset of people, usually people who have ambivalent attachment, anxious attachment, is that they very aware of what was happening in relationships and they were very attuned to their experiences. And as adults, they grew up feeling all of the pain of the attachment. But yes, you're right. Like in childhood, a lot of us were not modeled or were not given those experiences.
Mhm.
So the beginning of attunement is recognizing how unaware you are of your experiences. How connected or disconnected are you to simple things that you do in your life? Something that I talk often to people about is about increasing capacity. We're not looking for you to be perfectly attached tomorrow, right? Or have the healthiest relationships next year. We want to increase your ability to attune. And sometimes that starts with just recognizing how disconnected you are with yourself. For me, the way I survived my childhood was through eventually disconnecting because it was pretty intense, especially as a sensitive person, being in those experiences. So when I went to a somatic therapist at the beginning of my EMDR, actually, an EMDR training, they asked like about my childhood. And I was like, I had a normal childhood. I feel like I have very good experiences. And I talk about that in my book. But then when I began to connect with those experiences, it was like, oh my God, that was pretty bad. And that was like the first step in my understanding of how disconnected I was, which began like a long journey ahead of reconnecting slowly. But I would say, like, that's the first step. If you've normalized things that happened in your childhood, if you've minimized them, that's the strategy of survival, right?
Yes.
But if you did not grow up in a healthy environment where parents were present, they were good enough, they were attentive, they were loving, they knew how to discipline, which, to be honest, that's a minority of people.
Exactly.
If you didn't get that, the chances are you were impacted in some way and your adult relationships are now suffering because of that.
I love this conversation because this is so important. When you say disconnected, some people don't even know what you mean. Like, kind of dive
Yes.
into when you say disconnected, what does that look like in real life?
Okay, so when we look at connection or connecting with anything, we're talking about the felt sense, right? We're talking about our body. We feel warm and fuzzy inside when feel connected. We're able to actually be aware of our how our body responds to experiences. A lot of the times we use emotions like I feel sad, I feel happy, I feel angry to describe our states of being, but the body actually experiences way more than that. I like to tell people in a single day, you go through different emotions, but a lot of times you're not aware of that because we don't pay attention to our shifting feeling states. So when you're connected to your body, you can notice how your feet feel on the ground. You can notice how your body feels on the chair that you're sitting in. You can notice how it feels when somebody hugs you. You can notice how your body responds to somebody smiling, how your body responds when somebody does something nice for you. And also, you can be aware of the pain that you feel, how you feel it, where you feel it when someone does something to hurt you. When we're disconnected, what we do is we tend to respond to a lot of what others are doing. So if we feel pain, we tend to focus on how do I change the other person so that they can influence my mood state? What can I tell this other person? How can I let them know that this was painful so that they can change something so that I don't feel this way? If I get angry, I might believe that I'm reacting to other people. If I don't know how to connect with my loved ones, I might do a lot of like caregiving activities, like caretaking, cooking things for them, or gift giving, or wanting to share experiences because my body is looking for a way to connect to them emotionally. But we don't know how to have that attunement with them of just like feeling present to them. So we look for different ways to try to compensate for that. With people who are disconnected, you will see usually a lot of irritability and anger outbursts when something doesn't feel okay without awareness of what's happening in their body. They usually don't feel body sensations, or if they feel like they're not attuning to them. Sometimes the moment that they attempt to attune, the sensation goes away. You might have experienced this with people who are doing EMDR or any other somatic practices. And it's like, where do you feel that in your body? And they hate that question. You know,
I
like the
do.
people who are very logical. They're like, I don't know, or I don't feel it anywhere, which was the case with me. I talk about that in the book too. Like that was the case with me. Like I gave headaches probably to the people who work with me, especially early on, and still like a work in progress for me of reconnection.
Yeah,
Because when your body has learned that it's not safe to feel, then attuning back again with your parts, with your body, with your emotions is a process.
it sure is. I was doing a workshop with couples. I've done 2 now, the last couple weeks. And in my office, I usually get an avoidant and an anxious, as you know. Okay. They're just like,
Mhm.
they fight each other.
Yes.
And they were sharing in this couples workshop. The avoidant was like, yeah, I just would prefer easy peasy because they get uncomfortable with that intensity or that vulnerability or too much emotion. And the anxious is like, give me something. Tell me how you feel. I call it a body scan with other people. They
Oh, yeah.
scan and they're like, I know you're mad. Just let it out. Just tell me. And then the avoidant shuts down. Our avoidance and anxious, let's describe how attunement, because usually we're going to get more anxious folks in our office. We get avoidance too, but the differences in wanting to do this work and an attunement, like let's start with an avoidant.
Yes. So I got excited when you said that. I mean, I know like this is hard for people, right? But
So hard.
when you see that and you have awareness of what's happening and then you guide people to see it, it can be so life changing. So I love that you're doing that work with people. So important. And when you have that dynamic, which is very, very common, the reason that it happens is because early childhood patterns form and we're stuck in them. So for an avoidant, the pattern is anything that feels too vulnerable is not safe. And the body automatically disconnects them from anything that will stir up any emotion because their body has learned to avoid it. And for anxious, ambivalent people, their body has learned to pursue attachment and connection. And that's a pattern, right? Like seeking it. I want you to wake up. I want you to react. I want you to see me. I want you to notice me. And both are engaging in their own patterns, which is reinforcing the childhood pattern, right?
Yes.
So something that I tell people often is like, well, if you don't change the pattern of pursuing, if you don't become aware that you have this childhood pattern of pursuing, which is valid because there's a reason that it got developed and we have needs that we want to get met. It's not unreasonable for you to want those needs to get met. But if you continue that pattern of pursuing without pausing and reflecting on the impact it has on you to pursue, then you won't be aware that you are unconsciously recreating that dynamic, and you will often tend to seek people who run away from it
Yes.
because you're recreating the pattern. This is your pattern. This is your
Your
50%.
pursuit pattern, your part in this dance is the pursuit part, is what you're saying.
Yes. So this is ongoing. Usually 99.9% of the times that I ask a person, like, does this pattern feel familiar? And how far does that go back? Almost always say, like, oh my God, I've been doing this for years. What will it feel like to not do that? To break away from the pattern, you have to actually do something different than you're doing. And here's what worse. I know that you might think that the grass is greener on the other side and that the only reason you find yourself in this situation is because you're with somebody who's avoiding you. But you cannot have a healthy relationship or a healthy dynamic here if you don't pause and shift this pattern. Because if someone who wants to give to you shows up, it's not going to feel good because that does not fit your pattern of pursuing. Unless we make these shifts to create something different than what we're doing in the moment, then we'll be stuck in these patterns. And same goes for the avoidant, right? With the avoidant, we would work on letting in, making it safe to let in some of that. So somebody's reaching out to you. Somebody wants to be with you. Do you even know what that feels like? Have you ever had that experience of somebody wanting to be there for you, wanting to reach out and create a bond with you? Chances are for the avoidant, they haven't. So this is new and it feels unsafe. And how would it feel to softly let your guard down a little bit? And even if you don't let it in, just know that that's there. This is a new experience. The body doesn't know how to process it. What reinforces a lot of the avoidant and anxious, ambivalent dynamic, though, is that if the avoidant ever pauses and wants to receive from the person who's anxious, then the pattern is flipped because, or not that it's flipped like that they will pursue as much, but if they ever pause and say, okay, let's do the thing that you want to do, right? You've been telling me that you want to go on dates. Let's do the thing that you want to do. And then the anxious, ambivalent person will flip often and say, well, no, because it's not good enough. We didn't do it when I told you that I wanted to do it. We're not doing it the way that I have been asking you to do it. It didn't come from you, so it doesn't feel authentic, which is a way from the person with the anxious ambivalent style to say, I can't receive. This is too much in an unconscious way. And it just reaffirms that pattern for the person who's avoidant, right? To be like, okay, I knew it. You weren't really
I was
there.
never good enough anyways. No matter what I do,
Yes.
I'm not good enough. You'll hear that. See, I
Yes.
tried to do it and that's not enough. And now we're off to the dance again. So what I hear is, because if you identify with maybe you're more anxious, you really crave closeness, you want to connect, you want to talk about emotions, you want to know how they feel. You almost have like this intense desire inside for it. That scares away the avoidance, like, whoa, this is too much, too intense. It's unsafe. They both feel unsafe in different ways, right? But you're saying no matter what your attachment style is, we have to pause. I heard you say that. Pause. Like go in with your body, knowing what your body's feeling. Okay. Notice the pattern of the anxious pursues and the avoidant kind of withdrawals, would you say?
Yes.
Yeah. And you're now reconnecting to what you feel like your body sensations. Start there and then noticing if you have a pattern of pursuing or you have a pattern of withdrawing, do you want to work on that? Because it will take energy, it will take effort, it will take connection to your own self and self awareness. I find people sometimes just don't want to do it. I'm like, do you want? Nah, they don't want to. They're secure because their protective part feels safer than trying something different.
Absolutely. It is a big ask to ask your body that at some point decided this is the best way for you
Mhm.
to survive relationships, to now expose yourself again, because at some point you did seek connection. So it's not like if you have avoidant attachment, like you were always that way. At some point you did try to connect. I talk about this in the book. I used to teach university classes for my child and adolescent development class. I had my students do observations on children. So I asked them to just
Yes.
observe a dynamic between an adult or somebody who was at least 5 years older. So this could also be like a teenager taking care of a child. And just notice the dynamics that took place. And I gave them a few questions and they observed the dynamics. And the child often seeks attunement. You will see it. If you see a child out with their parents or caregivers, you will see that the child is often seeking some way of attunement.
They want to connect with their parent or their caregiver.
That was us. That was you. You're
Yes.
no different. At some point, that was not safe. For some people who grew up in really traumatic households, they might not even remember their bits for connection. They might believe, like, I'm just this way. This is just the way that I was born. But no, like humans thrive in connection and they want connection. They just don't want unsafe connection. So teaching it now that relationships can feel safe, it's really vulnerable and it opens us up to be hurt. And we have to be okay with that.
Ooh, that's a big one for people. They don't
Yes.
want to get rejected or hurt or feel abandoned or feel like they're not good enough. So that's the risk you run of you're saying you could get hurt.
Yes. And your brain doesn't want you to get hurt. This is
Oh.
how we ended up with these strategies in the first place. But the reality of life is that we can get hurt. Our bodies are designed to feel pain, emotional pain, and a range of emotions at that. So it's not something that we can just decide to. It would be nice, but it's not something that we can
Mhm.
decide that we're not going to feel. So we either learn to accept that or we will just continue to be in connections that don't feel satisfying because we can't do both. We can't self protect to the point of only connecting when it feels safe and having healthy relationships. It's not possible.
Ooh, that's big. And I also want to speak into if someone says, like, my parents were pretty good. I didn't have a, because some people, like you said, when you first came in, my husband, we were dating 2 months and I was like, let's go to premarital counseling. I had a perfect childhood. And I'm like, wah, wah, wah. Even though they had wonderful parents, it's not that, but nobody has a perfect childhood. Even if you were left in the crib, okay, there was a cry it out method that went on for decades. Okay. And people don't realize that impacts attachment. If you cried out for a parent, in the middle of the night, maybe you were wet, hungry, tired, or just wanted cuddling and comfort, and you were left to cry it out, that does impact connection and attunement. Can you talk a little bit about that? You might not have known if you were left in the crib crying, but I'm just saying it doesn't have to be something so overt that you remember.
Yes, absolutely. And even if we understand that our parents might have been very disconnected themselves, you might have had a parent who worked out a lot outside of the home or who focused a lot on getting things done at home. A lot of families were larger before, so that meant less time to take care of one child. A lot of the time, like children had to take care of themselves or between each other, right? We often see when there's a larger family unit, a parentified child, because there has to be a child that takes on a parenting role almost. A lot of the times we will try to conserve the way that we see our childhood because we don't want to feel that pain. And also because we don't want to see our parents in a bad light. And it's natural. We want to conserve that image. Like our brain did that for us. It's not intentional. Not everybody has it. You will see some people in adulthood will often talk about how bad their childhood was. Don't have that, right? Of normalizing things. For some children, their brain had to normalize what was happening in order for them to be able to maintain a connection to their caregiver or to feel a sense of safety themselves. I know in my case, I normalized a lot that my dad was away for work a lot. And that is such a tricky thing because oftentimes if you start acknowledging like, oh, wait, yes, he did work a lot, but maybe he didn't have to work that much. As a working adult at that, who also works a lot, I've learned that from my dad, that I had to face the reality that some of the work that I do is a choice, that I can be more available for my child. It doesn't mean that I quit working. It doesn't mean that I only focus on parenting. It is that I, as an adult, have a choice. and our parents had choice too. And sometimes they were unaware, and it's not to bash them or talk bad about them. But if you don't sit with the reality that what happened was you grew up with one or two adults who had choices to make, and they made the best choices that they could in the situation, but those choices could have still impacted you, then you will be doing a disservice to yourself and your relationships, because it is a way that we self-protect, but we can learn to have healthier relationships with the people who took care of us if that's something that we aspire. Seeing things with a bird's eye view of everything that happened, not just this view where we normalize and minimized things that happen.
Because it's key to healing, I think. If we just minimize it, rationalize it, deny it, we don't actually then become more attuned. I feel like that it impacts your ability to attune, which impacts your ability to connect in all of your relationships with your kids, your grandkids, your partners, whoever it is. It's going to limit you on your ability to connect because your capacity will be decreased. Can you have the capacity to tolerate uncertainty and mixture of emotions and the risk of getting hurt? Is the capacity, how big is that capacity to tolerate that with attunement?
Yes, it's so important when we're curious about what's really happening is to notice our capacity. What happens in our body when we ask ourselves the question, what if this actually had an impact? You will see that when we've been in this self-protective mode, when we begin to be curious even about the possibility that this had an impact on us, we might feel a lot of emotions, or we might feel nothingness. A lot of people who describe nothingness, I feel nothing, but emotions are felt in the body. So if you don't feel any emotions, that is a way to know that you're likely disconnected, unless there's something else medical going on. But when we attune to that experience, it can feel uncomfortable. And if we don't have capacity to experience that, then our body will just assume that we can't. And that's not the case. We teach ourselves to have capacity by withstanding or learning to tolerate that discomfort of that, just being there, just letting there be there. You don't have to be with a full experience. You don't even have to go in and do inner child work or explore to what point your childhood has impacted you. You can begin just withstanding the discomfort of what is it like to accept a different possibility. Even when people are healing other insecure attachments like anxious avoidant, what is it like to just sit with the discomfort of thinking about the possibility that you're recreating a pattern that is not beneficial for you? That might feel like a lot. So learning to just be there without trying to justify it, without trying to reason it, just be there. Just be curious about what your body experiences. Because a lot of us, when we had these experiences, had the experience of them just going unresolved and unexplored.
And then we feel stuck. Because if we
Very.
don't explore it and get curious, you will feel stuck. It's the path through to get that feeling of I just can't move forward. Starting to connect, get curious with your body sensations, what you feel, and being able to tolerate that and build your capacity. So, is that the first step in the healing process to become more secure and attuned?
Awareness. Yes. I talk in the book about different things that can impact our ability to connect, because it's not only our parents, it's also the systems that we live in. So there's different factors that impact our ability to connect. What we have to know is that if we struggle connecting or having healthy connections, is because we haven't had the experience of being in healthy connections, so that we've actually learned how to be there naturally. So if we don't have healthy relationships, then we can just begin becoming aware of what happened, like what's missing here, what is needed. We don't have to figure out the whole puzzle. So important to give ourselves time to go through our process without rushing it, which I think can be the most frustrating part for some people because all of us want to have healthy relationships, but the work that it takes to get there takes time.
It does. And I like some of these distinctions you've made because majority of the couples I see are, like I said, anxious avoidant. But in general, I see typically one of the two playing out. And if we're so disconnected from our bodies, if we're so disconnected from emotions, and you're not willing to build up the capacity, you're probably going to end up with the same patterns, is basically the outcome. So it's a willingness to sit with these emotions that you don't want to feel or scare you. They scare you, they could overwhelm you. Or the silence sometimes for an anxious person to tolerate it's okay. We're going to step back. We're not going to pursue. We're going to check in with our own bodies. Like that's dysregulating because they want that connection so desperately. And attunement is something that I've worked on over the years through EMDR. To be attuned at the level that I want to be at takes so much self awareness. And I find EMDR extremely effective. Somatic experience is wonderful in getting to become more attuned with yourself and then have better attunement with your kids and your partner. Do you find that's a great modality? For those that don't know, you've heard me talk about it a million times, but it's eye movement desensitization reprocessing, EMDR, and we're both trained in it. Do you find that as an effective modality to help in somatic experiencing with attunement and attachment?
Absolutely. I think there's different ways to go about it when we're doing individual work. EMDR, somatic experiencing, any somatic modality just helps you become more aware of your internal experience, which includes your thoughts, your sensations, emotions, reactions, memories, right? Because a lot of the times we don't put things back together of like, oh, like this, actually, I've been feeling this for a long time. It's not new. It's not new to this relationship. And I haven't done it. I don't know if you've done it, but there's this really cool way of doing it with couples, which is if people are ready and it feels safe enough to have your partner be there with you in session. So they're witnessing your process because then that helps them connect with your experience. Because what we need in connection is this feeling of empathy. I can be in your shoes and kind of see what that experience would be like for you. And that can help people feel so much closer together. And sometimes in a therapeutic setting, that can be so healing too.
If someone's willing to do it, because it takes a level of vulnerability. And like you said, empathy is the secret sauce. And what I find is if you're so defensive, self-protective, which we all have parts that are self-protective. So I want to say thank you for your service for all of our self-protective parts. And they can be maladaptive at times where it prevents connection because you're so defended that you can't even access empathy. It's hard to even access empathy because you're in your own world and you can't get past that. And I think empathy is key to life. And attunement is too. I think attunement leads to empathy.
Absolutely. I think empathy is a way of being attuned,
Yeah.
right? And I think people who are not attuned, who can attune, or who are very disconnected from themselves, lack empathy a lot of the times. Some people are overly connected to their empathy, so much so that they blur the lines and they forget completely about themselves and they center the other, right? So that's the other extreme of that. A healthy empathy would be the balance between having empathy for your experience and for another person's experience in the relationship. That I think is key to healthy relationships with boundaries, right? Boundaries is what allows you to have empathy for yourself, for your experience, to recognize the pain that you experience. And that is important also because sometimes like that, there's so much focus on the other person or there's so much focus on me that I completely forget about the other person. I feel like a lot of the things I say, I talk about that in my book because parts of
Attuned
it
and
come up.
attached. Love the title. What other books along your journey have you made the biggest impact in your life? Maybe like one or two. I know this is a big question, but I love books and so do I. Besides your book that I'm going to link in the show notes, Attuned and Attached, everybody can grab it. What other books have really impacted your way of thinking, being, feeling, views?
Diane Poole-Heller's books. So she has this, I think it's only on Audible, but it's Healing Your Attachment Wounds. That book is so good. And another one is, funny enough, it's a parenting book, but it's from Dr. Shefali Tsvati. And her book, The Awakened Family, helped me understand projection a lot, how much we project onto others and how much we go outside of ourselves to seek to feel good. I attended partially a training by, I haven't finished it, but his last name is Molano, Santiago Molano, if I'm citing him right. But he made this statement of, oftentimes when we're in relationships, if we're not feeling okay, we look at another person, like something outside of us, to blame it for not being okay. And sometimes we fail to take responsibility for being curious about our experience of what is making me not feel okay. And if I'm feeling okay, then it must be that other people are doing something good to make me okay. So we put it so much on another person's control to dictate how we feel. And this is a shift away from that. And I learned that a lot from that book, The Awakened Family, of how to recognize how much we expect other people to behave in a way that makes us feel good. And it's how important it is to shift away from that.
I love her work. I've read that book. I love Dr.
Yeah.
Shawley's work. So good. It's very profound. Like for some people, it's like, whoa. And I'm like, yes, it's a way to check yourself. It's a way to check your projections and what you're putting on other people and your expectations. It's so good. Really shifted a lot of my thinking. So I agree. Love it. So thank you for those suggestions. Is there anything we did not cover that you felt was really important to the conversation?
I think we always want to do a holistic approach when it comes to shifting away from patterns. And that means mind and body. So we do have to look at our core beliefs because I think that they shape a lot of our thoughts and how we show up in relationships. I know that when we go into a somatic world, we love it and we're like, oh, you all just need to do somatic work, right? But it is also about doing that cognitive work of shifting your core beliefs. How do you view yourself? How do you view others? How do you view the world? Because that impacts the way that we show up in relationships quite a bit.
Yes, it does. That's why I love EMDR because you're working with the core beliefs.
Yes.
That's a huge part of EMDR, which I love about that. Okay, I loved our conversation, Yolanda, so much. Where can people find you if they're interested? We'll link it all in the show notes.
I'm on Instagram. This is Yolanda Renteria. It's my handle. And I also have a website, yolandarenteria.com. You can get my book there. And I also have some workshops that I've done in the past. And my contact information is there.
Yay! And congrats on the book. It's coming out in May.
Yay.
So you can get it for pre-order. Yes. Attuned and Attached. Love the cover.
Thank you. I love it so much too. They did a great job. I loved it.
I am so excited for you. It's a labor of love to write a book. And so you hope that you can change it from one-on-one to one-to-many to make an impact.
Yes.
So if you got something out of this conversation and you're like, oh, this was good. This is opening my eyes to patterns and a different way to see things, grab the book. Because then it takes you a level deeper into what we talked about today. So Yolanda, thank you for the work you're doing in the world. And I loved our conversation and so excited for the future for you and what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Same. I honestly feel so touched that people get to hear about this. I know this work has been life-changing for me, and I'm so thankful too to be sharing with somebody else who's doing the same work. So thank you so much for inviting me and having me here.
Thanks, Yolanda. Thank you so much for listening to the Close the Chapter podcast. My hope is that you took home some actionable steps along with motivation, inspiration, and hope for making sustainable change in your life. If you enjoyed this episode, click the subscribe button to be sure to get the updated episodes every week and share with a friend or a family member. For more information about how to get connected, visit Kristen, Kristen, Boyce, Boice.com. Thanks and have a great day.